sector. So we're part of that natural sort of creation and scoping about what was needed to piece a bid together, which was some massive Bible in the end.
Yeah.
So that put us around the table.
Right.
The bid was won.
With co-production as a central aspect.
Yes, and I guess it was about seeding all those ideas in that partnership group, wasn't it? Because as I said, people didn't talk or co-production or understand it in that way. When it was awarded, there was great fanfare. It was fantastic, innovative council, But then they really lost their way right from the start, because I think they'd won it but hadn't had any idea about how it would be implemented. And it wasn't, in their view, an externalised partnership program.
So the council were the lead deliverer.
Yes, but Early Years Alliance were then brought in. So the big lottery put them in like special measures and said, if you don't sort it, we will pull it from you, which would have been national news at the time. So that's when, about 2017, that's where SAVS really came to the fore. That's where my involvement kicked in, really. So we were approached as part of that partnership to form a board that would then really govern and push forward the program and start to implement things. So at that point, there was no parent involvement or any voice around the table or in any way touching the program. And then it was about who's embedded in those communities, who could go out and recruit stakeholders directly, who's connected into these disadvantaged wards that were stated. And SAVS held some programs in the neighbourhood programs that were just exactly aligned to those wards. So we were embedded in the community, we were delivering activity, we were known, and that's where SAVS being around that table was the opportunity to say, we've got people that can do this. What's the brief? What are we looking for? And how are we engaging? And that's where this parent voice idea came from. So we stepped in and we became part of that delivery arm. And we went out to those communities with the brief of finding parents of 0 to 4s and started to talk to them, bring them together, have forums, and then I guess build to the idea that they could be trained and given skills to then become part of a governance to influence services, decisions and so forth. And we had great success, and we went out and we wrote a manual of training, we recruited parents through programs and people we probably already knew in some regard, and we pieced together some training sessions, and the parents come and they got involved. The part of it was really about when they were trained and became parent champions as such, what was the offer or what activity could they be involved in? And that's where the program had lagged in those couple of years, that there was really no governance and structure going on. So our point again was pressing back to the program and the partnership to say that you need to build the offer. We've got parent champions, but if there's nothing to offer them, why would they stay and why would they want to be involved? So we worked hard to build what we could, the part of our offer, monthly forums, engagement fund ideas, co-production, comms meetings and so forth, whilst the program caught up and got into a position where parents could then go and sit around board tables, executive boards, task and finish groups and so forth, and become actively involved in decisions, influencing and sharing lived experience. So there's two elements. It was about this co-production element that people were like growing into and understanding, but there's all wrapped around lived experience. And that's without the voice of lived experience. How could we create and influence and involve services that actually meet the needs of the community? And lived experience is where, down the track all these years now, lived experience is the strongest element. So co-production's still there, but actually it's the value of lived experience and connecting with it. Even if you talk to local authority or health and that, they're all crying out to activate and link into the lived experience. Co-production's part of it. And co-design, consultation, all those things. But having a lived experience that's active in the community has so much weight and power that I think the partnership over the time, might be 15 organisations, have grown to really understand that actually co-production is valuable, hard work, messy, and at times unforgiving. But if you can make it a necessary part or a valued part of your process, where there's time and an appropriate resource to do it, then absolutely it should be part of your plan, your development of work. Lived experience, you don't need co-production to have involvement with lived experience. So it's about learning all that and actually understand that they can be separate things, but together they're the most powerful thing. And I guess for the voluntary sector, to have the ability to deliver and be partners around that delivery of those services and a better start was a key thing as well. And SAVS, as a representative around the table, that was able to sort of champion that as well. Volunteering in itself is something that's at the heart of what we do. Volunteer centres, volunteering is so strong in our organisation. We have a staff team of 35 but 90 volunteers. Without those people and resources, we couldn't do what we do. So it gave us a real opportunity to play a significant part in the partnership instead of that like tokenism around the table. In the end, we became a strategic partner, and they actually took some space in our building here and set up, and by leaving the Civic Centre, come more into the heart of the community. And again, that had its ripple effect and had its impact and made them more tangible, more accessible, more connected. So I think that there are things about where you locate teams and where you locate work and how you go about connecting with the very places you're trying to influence or improve.
So that's really interesting what you said about the start, which I hadn't understood before. So would you say that that's a really important thing? How you start is really important. 'Cause it sounds like you guys did a lot of catching up for the local.
And focused. So in that second, third year where Blackpool or Bradford and that were probably still progressing on that general momentum, Southend went through the roof, I guess, because it's just a flurry of activity and partnership kicking in and being unleashed almost. And I think on that ride, there was significant change, but I guess the learning was so agile and quick that it was a challenge for some partners around the table. But I think when you're championing the voluntary sector and the community, and you've got parent champions that are really so involved, then you can't be around that table. You can't deny it. So what happened with the start was almost corrected and overwhelmed in the middle. And then in the end here, we're probably well and truly aligned and probably exceed many of the other sites in what we're doing. So a difficult start doesn't necessarily mean a difficult end. But I think it was crucial there, as either the partnership came and kicked in or it was lost to Southend community. And if I was sitting here and thinking that had been lost 7 years ago, we wouldn't not be able to comprehend what we've lost. So I think it's the partnership approach. The co-production demands you open up and connect with others. The local authority just didn't have that mindset, and what it did is it bubbled them, and they got caught in some regards in their own self, because they didn't have external partners around the table to even help them, but they weren't communicating and engaging that. So this great thing soon become in the community. I remember going to plenty of meetings 18 months, 2 years in, it's like, but whatever happened to a better start? They got all that money, but nothing's happening. It's like, I don't know, never hear anything about it. And then 6 months later, it was going to be everywhere. So there's definitely learnings, although in a 10-year thing, when you think of organisational memory, much of it's lost here. So you're sitting here talking to someone who has seen the journey. But one of the crucial things was really about an independent organisation like SAVS being able to harness the stakeholders, the parents directly, without any other agenda other than supporting them, training them, skilling them, and seeing them into that role. So there was no conflict. It was the perfect sort of position, we felt.
Yeah. So do you think that the local authority has seen the value of that process now? Do you think it's helped them change their engagement approach?
Yeah, well,
And we can
on
cut
some
bits
levels,
out.
yeah,
We
yeah,
can cut bits- I'm not trying to be
on some
totally
levels.
critical, but
I think the more senior you go, there is this buy-in and narrative around co-production. I think when you're getting down into that operational officer level, there's varied awareness of it or understanding of it, and then there's a desire where they would like to do it, but know that possibly the way they're resourced or set up, they could never do it. To others who it's actually written in what they do, but they don't do it properly. So, so co-production, which I think is one reason why co-production doesn't hum along in the vocab like lived experience does. Lived experience is an easier thing. You can go to a meeting, you go to a health and wellbeing board and say, we need to tap into lived experience of domestic abuse victims. Okay, that's because we can hear from them, can't we? We can understand what their experience is. We want to co-produce with victims of domestic abuse. That's a different thing, isn't it? And how do we do that, and what does that mean? And co-production, to bring parents in, one of the beauties of what we end up developing was that there's got to be an interaction both ways. It has to be a mutual benefit, doesn't it? There can't be this one-way thing of bringing parents in, sucking everything out of it and saying, oh, that's great, thank you, see you later, we'll call you back when we need you next. Co-production is about you start here, you have a middle, and you loop back, and it loops back to where you started. So those people are kept informed on some level all the way around. What we see is a bit of co-production that sort of rolls out like this. So up here in the local authority, there's acknowledgement and expression of it. Office level, some would be happy never to mention co-production. And some might even over-egg what they think they can do around co-production because they don't understand it. So part of it, and probably midway in that A Better Start journey, SAVS and some partners, we brought in an organisation to help support like strength-based working, asset-based community development. And we had all the senior people in the local authority go through that training and absolutely connect. So officers that have been so remote and execs and that, sitting in with voluntary sector leaders and level under, learning about the same thing and actually understanding the principles of how we work in this sector, and then taking that back in and pushing it down to the teams. Now that would have been about a year before COVID. And then the other period of A Better Start, brackets COVID, changed the world again. And everything we'd been doing and the formats and the delivery of how we worked in forums to training was all blown out of the water. However, again, because of the nature of the parents and the resilience, the want to be involved, ways were quickly found, technology was found. So, but it wasn't for all. We hit digital exclusion. We had parents that had older children in the house that they then had to educate. We had ones that were become anxious and mental health impacted. So we had to work hard to keep the group harnessed and that I guess identity and collectiveness together. And that was another challenge in itself. But the team, the parents themselves, A Better Start management and program leads, to be fair, all come to the fore. And it's almost the legacy of that is also what's made it greater today and allowed many more things to occur that we could not have fathomed we would do if COVID hadn't come. So it's that double-edged thing about that. But I mean, the parents, you go to work, I go to work, I've been in the voluntary sector for a long time, and along the way you meet individuals who inspire you, you see things that inspire you in these moments. But I mean, parent champs have been inspiring for years. It's unusual in that regard because there is a level of equity. Now we talk about equity not in its purest sense around the table, but equity in the recognition and value of what they've got to say in that regard to someone who's earning 120,000 across the table telling you, I do this for a career and this is my thought. Well, I'm a parent of a 3-year-old and I'll tell you what I'm experiencing and you tell me if that's not your reality or what can be done. That equity, when it got there and we achieved it, was a significant part of the legacy and the moment.
So parents talked about culture, creating a culture where that could happen. So it sounds very much like that might have come from SAVS.
I would like to think some of it did. Yeah, I think when you're wrapping around the parents, if you're bringing it down into those parents, and the way that absolutely the culture was about support, care, understanding, and the openness about it. So we're honesty. You know, it's like any volunteer. The principles of volunteering. We bring volunteers in to do all sorts of things. We need to be open with them. We need to be clear what we expect, and they need to be clear what they're looking for. We need to make it meaningful. So it's not about, oh, come to a charity shop and just fold those clothes and see you later, 2 hours tick, that's another thing. Someone else doesn't have to do it. It's about, can we create meaningful things? The beauty of this was that parent champion role becomes so meaningful and so entrenched. From the quality of a meeting couldn't be held if there weren't enough parents there. All these things were about layers of value. And to this day, I haven't seen it before in any governance or any format beyond. Other partnerships here in Southend talk about, oh yeah, we're great to have like individuals and lived experience in there, but they can't because they don't know how to. And the Better Start program team didn't know how to either. But the culture that the team were led on was about those very principles. You know, these people are coming, contributing, giving their own time. We care for them, we develop them. And that culture was crucial because I think our commitment to it was so strong that we employed parent champions into paid roles. And we have, if I look back, I think, you know, we have done everything we said we would do and demonstrate that through those actions about this group, employing people, giving them jobs, roles, you know, ensuring that they have a next step plan as a parent going into that as life changes when that 4-year-old goes to school. So for us, it's nothing exceptional about the culture that went in there, but it was probably exceptional from the culture of that partnership and how they might think you work with people.
And what do you think, is it sustainable now that you're about to close down everything? Is that
But sustainable.
well? Okay.
Yeah.
What can be harnessed going forward? What will remain?
Okay.
Once a Better Start.
So SAVS as an organisation in the community in the park. So SAVS as an organisation, I can certainly tell you. So the culture sustains, the value of lived experience sustains. The legacy of what we've learnt and how we will develop future work will continue to exist. SAVS as a partner with all that organisational experience will remain. So those things aren't lost. Team members that we had deliver that course will remain, and it will filter into what we're going to call a parent voice pilot, where the current parent champions will be invited to become part of something new, and we'll recruit new parents into that thing, and we will try to link that lived experience into tackling poverty forums, domestic abuse, health forums, all those sorts of things. So I guess for me it's like the legacy of it. So, and to show you how that works at SAVS, if we go back to when A Better Start was won, previous years before that, SAVS held a neighbourhood management project, which put them in those same 6 wards, working for 4 years, a couple of £1 million it was, came through. And when that ended, we pulled through some elements of it. One was youth engagement and one was environmental, which you probably call community building right now. And they sustained in the legacy of that work. The legacy of that work kept us in those wards, so when A Better Start come along, we were still embedded in those wards, and then that went for another 10 years. We will continue to work in those communities for the next 10 years, doing whatever it is that falls into those disadvantaged communities. And those people and our workforce will continue to be in that community, not just dropping into the community, but they'll be involved with the community. So that legacy, which is why I don't like sustainability, but legacy of the work. So we do a piece of significant work, and this is significant work, and it will embed and sustain in our culture, our delivery, our experience, our offer going forward. This is why this work's so crucial, that we continue to not lose what's been so vital when there's very little early years focus in Southend. And the greater things that are coming, around devolution and so forth. So the community needs a voice. So you can't sustain 4 million a year when it ends, I guess. But we can have legacy and we can have continuation on some level, which is what I would call it, more so than those words that people who are going use. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What about for you? Like some of the parents that we've spoken to spoke in a very heartfelt way about their experience. What's it been like for you?
Oh, I told you, I've had some dark days and I've had some wonderful days. For me, it's been everything. It's been the spectrum, from delivering training to parents on a level where they share and open themselves up, which is inspirational, to facing off projects with a Better Start leads and partner leads, which is a challenge and difficult, and where culture clashes, where absolute principles are so unaligned. And they're some of the dark days, they're the things, but never always committed to the cause. So, children, families, which I have and I live in Southend, I have children, have a family, all trying to do the same thing in some regard. But wanting Southend to be the best it can be for all to access services. I think, like I say, it's inspiring, it's challenging. I've had many colleagues alongside me, behind me, in front of me, that have come and gone. So for me, it's been a journey of resilience, discovery, celebration. As it's moved on, and I've now moved to CEO, I've become more remote from that delivery aspect, more engaged in the strategy of it. But you can still get the sprinkling of inspiration come in the strategic world. But seeing it and having trained parents and see them go on and then employ parents is the greatest thing, really. And it's probably why you do it, because you're able to be so true to your principles, your values. And again, working in this sector and having worked in other roles and other sectors in my past, is nothing more truly aligns to my own principles. So for me, this is the work. To see people come from the backgrounds or the settings that they do and achieve what they do, to a point where we come out of a meeting once years back, and one of the councillors, Shrewsbury councillors, caught me at the end of the meeting. He said, "Oh, those parents talking in there." I said, yeah, they're great, weren't they? He said, "Are they the right ones?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, they talk so clearly and so articulate, are they really the ones?" I said, "What, from the disadvantaged neighbourhoods?" He's like, "Well, you know what I mean." I said, "They are the ones. We're about giving them the confidence, the ability. They have the ability, we're just unlocking it and encouraging them to do it." So absolutely the right ones. But that is part of the attitude that had to be changed. Who are these people? Why are they speaking so clearly? It's because they speak about their lives. It doesn't matter who you are. One thing we can be articulate about is our life, our experience. So attitudes were frustrating, political shadows and presence were frustrating. The joys of the people was phenomenal. The partnership was developmental and innovative and inspiring and challenging and frustrating, and at times in despair. But individuals come and go. the collective has to stay, and that's why you have to be resilient. You have to keep working because things always change. And that's exactly the experience of the community out there. And parents will tell you all the time, you know, what was last week is not this week. And when you're building a culture of supporting to such a large group of people, I can't remember, 40, 50 people, that's a lot of individuals and a lot of ripples in life that will come to you. So a team that's resilient, skilled, but fundamentally a team that cares and respects. The rest you can give them skills, you can train them, but you can't make people care and be respectful and have that nurture. So they're the types of people we're looking for. And when you have a group of parent champions coming through, you know, you can employ all of them really. But the idea was just to demonstrate and show where the opportunity was, that, you know, come and apply for a job and be part of that, because it's all part of the journey. So I look across the partnership table now, I can see Krishna and I can see a few others that were there all that time, but there's not many left. So it's sad in that regard as well, that it's ending, and that massive resources has gone. And some things have worked, but let's be real, some things have not worked at all. But that's test and learn, and that's co-production. You can't be so rigid to expect perfection or everything to succeed, and you have to take that. So as partners and as partnership, we had to learn to accept that, I guess, the failures, and that's what the whole start was. We had to accept that at some point, say, you know, it's not good enough. Let's do that. So that was the experience for me.
So what advice would you give to another organisation wanting to dip their toe into the world of co-production? So go in open-minded. Yeah, so understand that co-production is not, it actually isn't a textbook thing. Co-production is determined and influenced by the very people you're going to engage in and embrace into that sphere. And if you're open, agile and willing to learn, be prepared for the bumps in the road, things to not work, but also be prepared that if it does have the right chemistry and work, then the rewards will be immense and the outcomes will be very valuable. So, and that actually some things that they're doing, if they've been doing the same methods and the same results and not good enough, then think about co-production, because that will change everything. And that lived experience is a key part of anything we do. If we're pushing anything in the community, or if we think we're doing good for the community, go and talk to people, because in reality, decision makers are too remote to really understand. And that always is the same response when it happens, and decision makers do come together with people with lived experience. They all walk away with the same thing. They've learned something very, very valuable, and they're much more closer to what the experience is, which will help them shape better services. And that people need a voice and want to be listened to. You don't have to agree with everything they say, just like they won't with the professionals. But and the other thing would be, if you are involving professionals in your co-production, you're thinking about doing it, don't forget to prepare them and support them. Yeah. So our job was really charged to support the parents for that, but equally some of that training around asset-based community development was also geared about supporting the professionals to come in that space, because for them, there's a fear, it can be a challenge as well. People just free access to scrutinise or challenge, but the idea is that they need to be supported, they need to understand it, and they need to be brought into that space with an understanding or the right perception of what could happen. That's it. Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh no, I've said enough, probably. I've said enough.